We're back with a Fox News alert, part 3 of the Twitter files, revealing executives met with the FBI and DHS and DNI on a weekly basis around the 2020 election.
Weekly basis. In a series of tweets, Matt Taibbi writes, Policy Director Nick Pickles is asked if the marketing department should say Twitter detects misinformation through human review and partnerships with outside experts.
Yeah, so Pickles told them to say partnerships. Not sure we describe the FBI and DHS as experts, reads the quote.
Sounds right.
Whatever it is, they're looking for some way to characterize their relationship with law enforcement. And Unfiltered's Dan Bongino is a great place to start in characterizing that relationship. As we learned this week, Dan, you were one of the people placed on Twitter's blacklist to their search engine. Good morning, Dan. How would you characterize that relationship?
Listen, this is only the biggest First Amendment scandal of my lifetime. I just turned 48 not that long ago. I've never seen, and here's the crazy thing, guys. It's so easy to explain that it's hilarious watching liberal media activists, wet their diapers trying to defend this. First, remember the story over the Twitter government collusion to suppress people like me and shadow ban me? The first story was, well, listen, it's a private company. They can do what they want. There's really no government involvement. And then we found out that there was government involvement, that the FBI may have been involved. And then we were confirmed that the FBI was involved. And then they were like, well, the FBI was just giving general warnings to tech companies. And then it turned out that it was the FBI and the DNI and the DHS and potentially the CDC and others. And then they were like, okay, it was just a lot of general warnings from the government. And then, sorry, one more, guys. Then the story morphed again. The Yoel Roth Twitter executive's sworn statement to the FEC came out, where he admitted that it wasn't a general warning, but that these entities had warned specifically about the Hunter Biden story. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, screw it, we're just commies. Let's just admit it and cut the BS. I mean, really, this is the, guys, can anyone on the couch, I know you're all strong, liberty-loving patriots, can anyone explain to me how the FBI, the DNI, and the DHS meeting with a private company and winking and nodding, suggesting they restrict people's free speech? Can you please explain to me how that's not a violation of the First Amendment? I'm all ears, man. It's unbelievable we're even having this debate.
Well, but Dan, the media is ignoring it. Outside of us, we're covering it, but the media is ignoring it. As we learn more, how deep do you think this goes, Dan?
Well, listen, this is the next shoe to drop here. So on my show tonight, I have an unfiltered it was supposed to be an 8-minute monologue. I think Pete may have heard some of it. I've interviewed Pete tonight as well. He's always awesome. But it was supposed to be 8. It turned into like a 13-minute monologue. It's completely unscripted. And it really screwed up my whole show because we almost had to cancel some guests, not Pete, of course. But I produced the receipts and the facts tonight. That it's not just that they colluded with the government to restrict free speech. We know that. Media imbeciles, we're not arguing about that. Just sit in a corner and shut up. We get all that. You guys are just useless anyway. We'll take this from here. The next shoe to drop is, were these tech companies colluding with each other? And I'll tell you why I bring this up. And I produced the receipts tonight on my show. Mm-hmm. I was attacked at but I don't want to be dramatic. I was confronted by a lot of these tech companies, let's say, all around the same time on my podcast and everywhere else, and they all seem to have the same message. Now, I can't prove they were colluding with each other, but I'll show you tonight how Google, how YouTube, which is part of Google, Facebook, and Twitter, all in this same time period, all came after little old Dan Bongino from Queens. YouTube banned me for saying that cloth masks don't stop the spread of COVID, which now, by the way, is scientific fact. Google Ads wiped my website off their network. This is all around the same time. Twitter suspended me after January 6th for simply retweeting Trump's statement. Yeah. And then Facebook says at the same time, oh, we're going to start crushing political content. And who is it going to affect? I even show you the news media piece. It says Ben Shapiro and Dan Bongino, because we have the biggest Facebook pages in the conservative space. Were they colluding with each other? That's the next shoe to drop. I think they were.
So,
go ahead.
If I could, I was thinking about Dan's question to us, and I wanted to engage.
I was too.
of how they say it's not a First Amendment violation? Like that question, Dan, and like you, Dan, I love debating, right? So that means I go seek out the other side. How are they saying it? Increasingly in this story, how are they spinning it? And I'll tell you what they're saying, Dan, other than it's a nothing burger. The way they're saying this isn't a First Amendment violation is they're saying, well, the FBI can make recommendations to private companies. They can make recommendations on what they believe is disinformation. And then I think we move to the next step, which is, but if all of the recommendations flow in one direction, what does that tell us about our national intelligence apparatus, right? FBI, DHS, DNI. What does that tell us about those organizations, which we increasingly focus on and need to, and their point of view when it comes to someone like you, somebody like me, somebody like Pete or Lisa, and our points of view?
You're a lawyer, so you'll get this probably better than most. I'm not, but I'm intimately familiar with how the law works, having spent my career in law enforcement. The law, and the reason we have judges is because, as you know, Will, the law is a lot of gray area.
Right.
So, yes, they could technically say, oh, we just winked and nodded at Twitter and said, hey, this tweet Dan Bongino put out there about masks, this could be classified as misinformation. Be a real shame if your place burned down if you didn't do anything about it, right?
Right?
And then the FBI can sit back and say, we didn't demand anything and play kind of a euphemisms game. But, Will, as an attorney, you know this. No judge is going to take that seriously. There's an implied force mechanism with government that doesn't exist when a private entity does that. The government is the only entity in the United States, in our country, that has the power to take your life and your freedom. We don't have mercenaries. We don't have a private police that are deputized by the government. You may have some kind of police powers, but the government sanctions that all the time. So when the FBI makes a recommendation, it's not a recommendation. It's an implied, you better do this or else. And any serious judge knows that. To the liberals
hey, by the way,
listening,
Dan, I'm sorry. This was happening at the
Yeah.
same time, by the way, Democratic politicians were threatening big tech. You remember that? They
Yes,
were
openly.
Democratic politicians
Openly.
were threatening big tech while the law enforcement arms were making suggestions.
Well, I was an early investor in Parler. AOC literally tweeted out to Amazon about their cloud, which Parler was on. Hey, Amazon, what are you guys going to do about Parler? I mean, are you now again to the libs? I know you're not that bright, but let's reverse this a bit. They're not. They don't get it unless it kicks them in the teeth. Imagine you had said something like to the pro-abortion crowd on the left that the FBI went into a, say, pro-life group and said, hey, guys, we're not recommending you block an abortion clinic, but, if you did it, we may not do anything about it. So, if you guys go and block, they would lose their minds. They would lose their minds. But they don't,
It all always goes in the direction of hurting Republicans.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
You know what I mean? It's
Democrats in Washington, D.C. with a lot of power, winking and nodding at Democrats in San Francisco
all
with a lot of power, all flowing in one particular direction. And they never counted on any of us knowing because it's an elite government agency and a Silicon Valley company that wasn't supposed to be bought by Elon Musk. Instead, we learned that guys like you were targeted. Dan, real quick on your show tonight, what do you got?
I got Pete Hegseth, Charlie Kirk, Byron Donalds, Charlie Hurt. I got a killer monologue, and Pete gets to judge who did it better in karaoke. Brett Baer or Hillary Clinton. Yes, it's probably the best segment on the show. Yes,
I saw the Hillary Clinton thing, and I will never. Dan, I wanted to pound my head against.
Yeah,
it was bad against the wall.
Brett Baer, surprising skill.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah, you got to watch it.
Dan, good to see you.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.